in the mid-COVID pandemic election, which caused everything on the order paper to be set aside. An election which served, as far as I can tell, literally no purpose, the least important election in Canadian history, which simply replicated the previous mandate down almost to the exact seat. So now it's a panic. Before we had literally years to deal with it, and I should point out this is dealing with an issue that is essentially 50 years old. I see the Speaker counting down. I will stop now, Mr. Speaker, and look forward to continuing after question period.
Thank the member for his intervention. He has 8 minutes when we return. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Bonavista, Buren Trinity.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to speak of the reality most Canadians are currently facing. With the increased cost of groceries and other basic necessities, our government understands these concerns and has done a lot to provide critical relief to those most affected by global inflation. Last night, Bill C-31 was passed through the House, an act respecting the cost of living, relief measures related to dental care and rental housing. This bill will provide up to $1,300 a year for eligible families to access dental services, so that children 12 and under can receive regular cleanings and preventative services. As well, those who rent their homes will also get relief with the Canada Housing Benefit top-up payment of $500, which will see 1.8 million renters get help with the cost of housing. Mr. Speaker, I am very proud of the work our government has done to help Canadians, such as the Affordable Child Care Benefit and the recent GST top-up. And the passing of this bill will continue to help those most in need during these challenging times. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
I rise today to recognize a very talented young woman from Calgary, Prableen Kaur Garewal. She's a grade 12 student who plays with Kings 11 Field Hockey Club. She has been selected for Field Hockey Canada's Next Gen program. Prableen represented Alberta at U18 Nationals, where her team placed second, and she was given the Tournament 11 award at the National Championships. She quotes, "I am the first Punjabi girl to be chosen for both." She will also play with the Canadian senior women in the near future. I want to congratulate Prableen and her family for their accomplishments. In Calgary, field hockey has played a key role in building community and youth leadership. I want to congratulate the various field hockey clubs like Kings 11, United Hawks Club, and United Field Hockey Club for running very successful tournaments over the summer and their continued efforts to build a better future for our youth. Thank you to the coaches, organizers, parents, and players for doing their part to building strong community together. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Pierrefonds-Dollard. Mr. Speaker.
October 21, Emmanuel Christian School in Pierrefonds-Dollard held a walkathon against violence. The gathering honoured Jason Collin, who at 26 tragically lost his life on August 10, 2022. Jason was an Emmanuel graduate. Jason was a victim of gun violence. Jason was deeply involved in his community. Jason was deeply loved. Let us recommit to creating communities that are safe from gun violence. Let us, as a society, address the root causes of violence. I commend Emmanuel Christian School for organizing this walkathon, for raising the voices in our community. Let us all take a stand against violence in all its forms. Continuons à étudier.
Let's continue to study and tackle the root causes of violence in our society. Jason, we owe you at least this much.
The honourable member for Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, as October comes to an end, so does Cybersecurity Awareness Month in Canada. This year I have increased hope. With the help of cybersecurity and fraud awareness experts across Canada, including John Mercer and Kevin Cosgrove, we have worked to ensure fraud awareness is at the forefront of discussions. Our goal is to safeguard and educate Canadians against the attacks coming in at them from their computers, phones, and at their doorsteps. Alongside my colleagues in the Industry Committee, we just reviewed our report on fraud to hold the government accountable and make sure it's doing everything to fight fraudsters and to educate and protect the Canadians. I have hope because thanks to a historic U.S. settlement, some Canadian fraud victims had the opportunity to recuperate their losses to scammers when they use the wire transfers through Western Union. I have hope because the world is waking up to educating and protecting its citizens before they become victims. I am hopeful that all members in this House will work with me to educate Canadians on fraud and scams, and that the government will work with its global partners to advance advance the protections and protect Canadians at the international level. We can do better, and we must do better. I have hope we will unite and fight these scammers and organized criminals, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Vimy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in the House today to mark October 28th, HoC Day. HoC Day, or No Day, commemorates the Greeks who, in the beginning of World War II in 1940, rejected Mussolini's ultimatum demanding the occupation of Greece by the Italian fascist army allied with the Germans and the Japanese.
Resistance to fascist aggression. Unified Greek forces defeated and repelled the Italian invasion and, more importantly, drew Nazi Germany into the conflict, which undermined its invasion of Russia and Ukraine, a critical junction in the ultimate Allied victory. The day symbolizes the courage to stand up to defend one's home and freedom and confront the aggression of a much larger, richer country and military and prevail with the help of one's allies. 82 years later, HoC Day's message is very relevant. Χρόνια πολλά Έλληνες, ζήτω 28 Οκτωβρίου 1940. Σας ευχαριστώ κύριε Πρόεδρε. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
The Honourable Member for Souris Moose Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, while the government sits back and watches Canadians struggle thanks to their lack of action on the just transition, I would like to highlight a group that is doing outstanding work surrounding the Liberals' phase-out of coal-fired power. South Saskatchewan Ready, an economic partnership that represents 9 communities, commissioned a feasibility study on the devastating impacts of the transition. Not only did that study recently win the 2022 Constantinus International Award Canadian Champion, it was also awarded the gold medal at the international level. All federal funding to assist this transition will end in March 2023, and the region stands to lose over $350 million in GDP and a 67% drop in population. Only 3% of the federal funding provided has been economic development, and combined with the Liberals' out-of-control inflation and cost of living, this will be the death knell of these communities. The government needs to stop pretending that their harmful, job-killing policies are actually taking meaningful steps to help the people of Southeast Saskatchewan.
The Honourable Member for Argenteuil-La Petite Nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Microbreweries Association of Canada presented the first ever Canada Beer Cup this past Sunday. This new national competition was designed to celebrate Canada's independent microbreweries that showcase quality and innovative craft beers from coast to coast to coast. I'm honored, Mr. Speaker, to have one of the great winners of this competition in my riding. Indeed, Brasseurs de Montebello won a gold medal for their Jack Rabbit beer. It's a black Pilsner, and they won a bronze medal for the Grand Feu beer, a smoked IPA, one of my favorites, Mr. Speaker. Thank you congratulations to them. Microbreweries are an important economic driver for rural Canada, employing many employees and promoting local history and heritage. I am proud to be able to highlight their positive impact on our communities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and long live beer. The Honourable Member for Orléans.
Spotlight the constituents of Orléans and the recipients of the Queen Jubilee Lapel, Kevin Frost. Kevin is a multi-sport world champion that has competed against able-bodied persons in all disciplines, and he has the gold medals and the world records to prove it. Kevin has competed in rowing, track, cycling, and golf. As we can all see, Kevin is quite the athlete. I would be remiss if I didn't divulge that Kevin is also blind and deaf. And despite these disabilities, Kevin has shown what can happen when someone appreciates what they have and uses it to move forward in accomplishing extraordinary feats. And don't take my word for it, take his. Kevin just announced the release of his book, Deaf, Blind Champion, a true story of hope, inspiration, and excellence in sports and life, where he gave readers a front row seats into how his life changed when he received his diagnosis and what he did to persevere through depression that engulfed him to become an accomplished sportsman, father, life partner, son, brother, teammate, and activist. Congratulations, Kevin.
L'honorable député.
The honourable member from Beauce. Mr. Speaker, Canadians can no longer afford this costly NDP Liberal coalition. In Beauce, as in all of Canada, the demand on food banks is skyrocketing, over 20% in my riding. Food inflation is at 11.4%. We haven't seen this since Pierre Elliott Trudeau's days. Farmers across the country are finishing their crops and trying to meet the demand to feed our country and many others. The unwarranted 35% surcharge on fertilizer and the skyrocketing cost of fuel needed to plant, harvest, and dry grain have only made the situation worse. The government has done nothing to curb food inflation. Breakfast cereal is at 16.7%, bread is at 17%, and pasta is at 22.5%. Not only are they doing nothing, they want to triple the carbon tax, which will also have a direct impact on the cost of heating for many families this winter. One-time checks will not solve the problem. Canadians need a break, and they have suffered enough. A Conservative government will end these punitive taxes and finally put Canadians first.
The honourable member for Cloverdale, Langley City.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Cloverdale Langley City is a wonderfully diverse riding with almost 70 Christian churches, a Muslim masala, 2 Sikh gurdwaras, a Hindu temple, a Buddhist temple, and more. I aim to connect regularly with all our faith leaders. I recently hosted a religious leaders roundtable with the United Churches of Langley. We discussed a wide range of topics. The faith leaders reiterated their respective communities' desire to help the government settle refugees fleeing dangerous situations. They also expressed concerns for our homeless and those affected by the opioid crises. Our community is fortunate to have such a compassionate group of leaders. I also had the chance to celebrate the Laurentian Leadership's, or LLC's, 20th anniversary. The LLC, formerly called the Booth House, is one of 24 designated National Historic Sites in Ottawa. I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Ann Penner, the Executive Director. As an affiliated program with Trinity Western University, I also appreciated seeing Dr. Mark Husbands, who is visiting from Langley. My intern, Lucy Chung, is a Trinity Western University student and a participant in this year's LLC program. Thank you to Lucy for her hard work during her placement in my office. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Regina, Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, people in Regina, Wascana and Canadians across the country are having trouble making their mortgage payments. This week, the Bank of Canada increased lending rates by 50 basis points. That was the 6th consecutive rate hike this year. With housing becoming less and less affordable, almost all Canadians are starting to worry about paying for the roofs over their heads. I say almost all Canadians because these difficult economic times seem to have gone unnoticed in the Prime Minister's office. On their trip to London, England last month, the Prime Minister's office managed to rack up $400,000 in hotel bills and other costs. This included one room in particular that cost $6,000 per night. Mr. Speaker, if this Prime Minister can't understand that Canadians are struggling, then Canadians need a new Prime Minister.
The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, once in every generation there is a game-changing invention, something that dramatically changes all of our lives and brings us from the past into the future. For us today, that invention is the ArriveCan app. For just $54 million, you can enter your name, your birth date, answer some questions, and upload some documents. This app actually has a mind of its own. It sometimes tells people to quarantine when they are fully vaccinated, not because it's supposed to, but as an act of pure metaphysical voluntarism. Liberals say this act saved tens of thousands of lives. The app was so insulted by these lowball numbers that it made them all stay home for 14 days. Now, someone got very rich off this app. $54 million would allow you to spend 25 years in that $6,000 a night hotel. It would get you 85,000 gallons of the orange juice that in saner times brought down a cabinet minister. Canada has truly entered a brave new world where computers can make you stay home and where decide which civil servants get paid. I, for one, welcome our new robot overlords. They may be bad, but the humans in charge are even worse.
The honourable member for Vaudreuil-Soulanges. Our entrepreneurs and small businesses are the backbone of our economy. That's why the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Vaudreuil-Soulanges is so important. Its objective is to support, connect, and defend the interests of its members in order to contribute to their success and economic development in Vaudreuil-Soulanges. I would like to thank the CCIVS for the work it does to support businesses in our community and has done so since its inception. I would like to welcome all the new elected directors. Congratulations to President Serge Ouellet, Vice President Mélanie Bossé, Treasurer Fanny Bradette, Secretary Pedro Lopez, and the Board of Directors comprised of Jean-François Blanchard, Josiane Farran, Philippe Roy, Luc Isabelle, Mathieu Janel, Éric Bellegarde, and Chloé Rousseau. I wish them good luck in continuing to serve our businesses and entrepreneurs. Together, we are building a more engaged, active, and prosperous community thanks to your work. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Cowichan-Malahat-Langford.
Mr. Speaker, not all MPs have motorcycle licenses, but I count myself to be fortunate to be one of them. During the beautiful, sunny, and hot day of Saturday, August the 6th, I joined with a couple hundred other riders for the first annual Vancouver Island Run for Homeless Vets, riding from Duncan to Langford. Now, I'll admit, most of the people on the run were not what I'd call your typical NDP supporter, and I was a little out of place with my dad's Kawasaki KLR 650 in the midst of all of those Harleys. But what united us that day, and which is something that I hold dear and goes beyond politics, was our common concern for the plight of homeless veterans, the men and women who faithfully served our country in uniform and now find themselves on the street. The funds raised that day were divided between Cockerell House, the Legion, and Homes for Heroes. And while I appreciate this effort, it underlines how much more the federal government must do. No veteran should be homeless.
Hear, hear. L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Bloc Québécois and my own little family, I would like to recognize World Stroke Day, which is held every year on October 29th. In Quebec alone, approximately 20,000 people suffer a stroke every year, and some 130,000 people who have had a stroke are living with physical effects that affect motor skills, communication, or even their emotions. Stroke can affect anyone, young and old, at any time in their life. My own family lives with the consequences of this illness on a daily basis. My youngest son, Ulysse, suffered a stroke at the very moment of his birth. I would therefore like to extend my warmest thanks to all of the people who work in prevention and treatment of strokes, who give time, money, and love to help us live better, healthier, and longer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Mr. Speaker, what we are seeing unfold is a disturbing trend from this Liberal government, and particularly the Minister of Emergency Preparedness, where Canada's independent police forces are being politicized to promote the Liberals' agenda. It started with evidence from the April 28th call with RCMP Commissioner Lucky, where the Commissioner admits that she received a request from the Minister's office and that she was working directly with the Minister and Prime Minister to release confidential information that could jeopardize an investigation, all to promote the Liberals' soon-to-be-released gun control legislation. Now we learn from text messages released to the Public Order Emergency Commission that Commissioner Lucky asked OPP Commissioner Thomas Karike whether the Minister of Emergency Preparedness had reached out to seek a letter of support for the Liberals' use of the Emergencies Act, days after it was invoked. Commissioner Lucky even sought to use a messenger app that would prevent investigators from recovering deleted messages. Clearly, she has something to hide. The RCMP Commissioner and the Liberal government are hiding the truth from Canadians. When will they finally come clean?
Yeah. The honourable member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Mr. Speaker, the importance of local journalism was on full display this week as we saw the vital role it played in our Ontario municipal elections. Leading up to and on Election Day, our community turned to our trusted local journalists for information on local candidates, important issues, and election results. In Kitchener-Conestoga, we relied on local news outlets like the Woolwich Observer, New Hamburg Independent, Kitchener Citizen, Waterloo Region Record, and the Wilmot-Tavistock Gazette, all trusted and credible news organizations delivering essential information to us day after day. Our community newspapers are struggling as tech giants benefit from online advertising revenue while displaying local news content for free. This is an issue about fairness. Tech giants must pay for the news content that they use. I'll continue to advocate for supports to local news outlets, including working on legislation that will require tech giants to fairly compensate news publishers and journalists. And I will always support quality, fact-based, independent, local Canadian journalism. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions. Question orale. The honourable member for Regina Capel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister told Canadians not to worry about his massive deficits and borrowing and spending because he said interest rates would stay low for a very long time. Then he turned around and pumped $400 billion into Canada's banking system, causing prices to rise. Now, to fight inflation that the Liberals caused, the Bank of Canada has again jacked up interest rates. And for the average mortgage in Vancouver, that means families will have to find another $1,900 a month just to stay in their own homes. Wow. So, has the government been briefed on how many Canadians will have to turn their keys over to the bank as they struggle to pay these rising mortgage costs?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, we've put a fiscally responsible affordability plan on the table in this House, and it'll be my pleasure to answer questions on the economy today. But, Mr. Speaker, the new Conservative leader hasn't answered a single question from journalists in nearly 50 days, Mr. Speaker. Canadians don't have the luxury of doing some of their job and not other aspects of their job. So if the new Conservative leader would like to take home his full paycheck paid for by the Canadian taxpayer, he needs to answer questions from journalists in the press gallery today.
The Honourable House Leader for the Official Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister hasn't answered a question in this House in 7 years. And we're here answering questions on behalf of Canadians who are struggling to pay their mortgage costs just to stay in their own homes. The typical family in Hamilton who now has to renew their mortgage payments will have to come up with an extra $1,300 a month just to stay in the home that they've already been living in. The Prime Minister said that he was going to go into debt so that Canadians didn't have to. So where should families in Hamilton send the bill for their higher mortgage costs?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, families in Hamilton and right across the country will receive in a few days a doubling of the GST tax credit, Mr. Speaker. And this feigned compassion from the Conservatives opposite, the day after they vote against providing supports to Canadians in the form of direct payments for those Canadians having trouble paying the rent, the day after they voted against subsidizing dental care for Canadian children, Mr. Speaker, this feigned compassion from the Conservatives is fooling no one.
Well done. The Honourable House Leader for the Official Opposition.
What we're against, Mr. Speaker, are the inflationary deficits that this government is causing. The reasons why prices are going up today is because the government flooded the banking system with $400 billion of brand new cash. And now Canadians have to pay for it. Again, a typical family, these are based on modest estimates from the Canadian Real Estate Association. A typical family in Ottawa will have to come up with an extra $1,000 a month when they go to renew their mortgage. So once again, has the government been briefed on how many Canadian families are going to lose their home because of the Liberal-caused inflation?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the Conservatives don't seem to understand that while the prices of things continue to rise in Canada, we need to be there to support Canadians. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are seeing higher prices at the grocery stores, and that is why we doubled the GST tax credit. That is why the Competition Bureau is currently beginning the investigation process into the market. That is why supermarkets across this country have frozen their prices, while the Conservatives are working on their next gimmicky lines. Mr. Speaker, we are serious about a serious issue in this country, and we're taking real action.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Mr. Speaker, there are people who are unable to buy groceries at the end of the month. There are people who are paying $800 more per month for their mortgage payments, Mr. Speaker. That's not a gimmicky line. It's about the livelihood of Canadians because, Mr. Speaker, this government has spent billions of dollars. It has created inflation. It has increased interest rates, which means that now every single Canadian is having trouble. Mr. Speaker, how many families are going to have to go bankrupt because of this NDP Liberal coalition? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, it's been barely 12 hours since the Conservatives voted against a measure to put more money in the pockets of Canadians. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives' economic plan is to rob our pensions, is to attack the EI system in this country, and the Conservatives don't have Canadians' interests at heart. The Honourable Member from Mégantic-Lérable. Mr. Speaker, since the beginning of the question period, the Parliamentary Secretary has not once answered the questions we have been asking her. That is, how many families will be bankrupt at the end of the month because of the inflationary policies of this NDP Liberal coalition. These families are not able to pay their mortgages at the end of the month. In Montreal, for an average family, we're talking about $800 more per mortgage payment every single month on a house that is worth $500,000. Mr. Speaker, through you, how many Canadians are going to have to turn in their keys because of the inflationary policies of this government? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, we said in this House that we wanted to cut taxes for low-income families. The Conservatives voted against that. When we moved the Canada Child Benefit, which puts more than $13,000 in the pockets of lone parents, the Conservatives voted against it. And yesterday they voted against additional measures to help Canadian households. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives need to look in the mirror and realize that they don't have the interests of Canadians at heart. The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, another day at the Public Order Emergency Commission and more evidence that the police forces did not want the Emergencies Act. A text message exchange between the RCMP commissioner and her OPP counterpart reveals that on February 5th, the police forces were already worried about the federal government's plans. This is what the RCMP commissioner said about the Emergencies Act. This is not something that I want. So why did the government invoke the most extreme of all Canadian statutes against the will of the RCMP? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we invoked the Emergencies Act because it was a decision that needed to be made. It was to protect Canadians' health and safety. And what the testimony has showed is that there were challenges around the disturbances that were affecting workers, families, vulnerable Ottawans, and that is why we invoked the Emergencies Act, and we're going to collaborate with the Commission. The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, the Commissioner's text messages also showed that during the very first week of the occupation in Ottawa, on February 5th, the federal government was already considering invoking the Emergencies Act. But on February 5th, the blockade of the Ambassador Bridge in Windsor hadn't even happened. That started on the 7th. So when the federal government claims that it had to invoke the Emergencies Act because it was a national crisis, that is simply untrue. Mr. Speaker, the Emergencies Act had never been invoked because it's supposed to be a statute of last resort. So why did the government use it as a first resort and against the will of the police forces? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, with all due respect for my colleague, the decision to invoke the Emergencies Act was a last resort. And that is exactly what the testimony before the Commission has been showing. There were many negative impacts on workers, on families, and on vulnerable Ottawa residents, including not just in Ottawa but in Windsor. So we invoked the Emergencies Act because it was an unprecedented situation and it was necessary.
Premier Danielle Smith is once again attacking public health care in Alberta, stating that she will pull Alberta out of federal programs she doesn't like and pushing an American-style private health care system, a system that will not help anyone but the wealthy.
I'm just wondering relevance on the question on public administration. So maybe we'll just allow the member to maybe rephrase it in somewhat that has to do with government orders. The honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Conservative Premier Danielle Smith is yet again threatening Alberta's public health care system, stating that she will pull Alberta out of federal programs she doesn't like. Federal programs like the Canadian Health Act. And to make matters worse, the federal government is doing nothing to stand up for Canadians' fundamental right to health care. When is the government going to step up and protect Albertans from conservative attacks on our universally accessible, publicly delivered healthcare system?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for the question, and I join with her in believing that our publicly funded, cherished healthcare system is part of the identity of being Canadian. The Canada Health Act is very clear. There are the 5 provisions that have to be seen in order to have a transfer. So I hope that the Premier listens to us when we meet in 2 weeks in Vancouver, and that her colleagues will let her know how important the Canada Health Act is to all Canadians.
Order. Thank you. The honourable member for Vancouver East.
Under the Harper government, the cost of buying a home increased by 77%. It doubled under the Liberals. The average rent in Canada is now over $2,000 a month. Families just can't afford it. Both Conservatives and Liberals allow for the financialization of housing to go unchecked, treating housing as a stock market instead of a necessity by allowing corporate landlords to evict people from their home to turn a profit. Canadians deserve to find a home that they can afford. Will the Liberals stand with Canadian families and put a stop to the profiteering of housing?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je remercie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. And yes, we can see that currently speculation is raging on the housing market, and that's why the government put in place a bill to ensure that a 1% tax on residential properties belonging to non-Canadians will be put in place because we want to ensure that we are protecting our market here in Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Peterborough Kawartha.
1.47 million. That's the number of Canadians who accessed a food bank in 1 month. Wow. The highest number in history ever. 1 in 3 of those users are children. And what's the Liberals' plan for relief? More tax. They want to triple the carbon tax on groceries, triple the carbon tax on home heating, triple the carbon tax on gas. Will they commit to ending their triple carbon tax increase, or do they want more Canadians using a food bank?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for raising a very important issue. This is a matter that should concern every member of this House and actually concern all Canadians. The fact that she said that families are struggling, feeding their family, but also kids, is something that is of concern to all of us. That's why, Mr. Speaker, back in May, I asked the Competition Bureau to look at the issue that we're seeing around competition in the country, and more recently asked them to launch an investigation to make sure there's no unlawful practice. But in addition to that, Mr. Speaker, I did speak to the number of CEOs around the country to make sure they do their part to lower prices for Canadians.
The honourable member for Peterborough Kawartha.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the member's attempt to answer the question, but that's not an answer for why we have $1 trillion debt. It's not an answer when we have an increase in carbon tax, when 4 million Canadians rely on propane and oil to heat their home. This is not a luxury. This is a necessity. The average family is going to pay $7,000 to heat their home this winter. They have to choose between heating and eating. So again, I ask, will the Liberals finally show leadership, fiscal responsibility and compassion and stop the tripling of their carbon tax?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to quote from an article that the new Director of Communications for the Conservative Party of Canada wrote, and he said, but opposition to a policy is not a policy in and of itself. And he added, Conservatives are refusing to contribute anything to the climate change discussion other than throwing temper tantrums and scoring political points. Mr. Speaker, I agree with the new Director of Communications for the Conservative Party of Canada.
The Honourable Member for Parry Sound Muskoka.
Mr. Speaker, the NDP Liberal coalition has racked up over $500 billion in inflation-causing deficits, turning essentials like heating our home and eating healthy food into luxuries. Just as Canadians are starting to pay the high skyrocketing price to fuel their homes, skyrocketing visits to food banks are happening in Canada as well. When will this costly coalition stop hurting Canadians and cancel their inflationary spending?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
We would all agree that our colleague is bringing an important issue. We are all seized by the fact that the price of food in this country has been increasing. Mr. Speaker, that's why we took action. Earlier this year, I asked the Competition Bureau to look whether there would be any unlawful practice in this country. More recently, I demanded that they start an investigation to make sure that we monitor what's going on in the market. But more recently, Mr. Speaker, what matters to Canadians, we took action. I did speak to CEOs of the large grocery chains in this country to make sure they lower prices for Canadians, because this is a matter that everyone should do their part to lower prices for families.
Member for Parry Sound Muskoka.
I cannot believe how tone-deaf that answer. He's talking about cell phone bills when people can't afford to eat and heat their homes. This coalition would have people believe that more inflation-causing borrowing to give Canadians $500 to help them pay for thousands more dollars in groceries, thousands more dollars for heating their homes, and thousands more to pay their mortgage is actually a solution. It's like the left hand doesn't know what the far left hand is doing. How many Canadians have to lose their homes before they get it and cancel their inflation-causing borrowing?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, maybe my English is not so good, but one thing that I'd say is I did speak to the CEOs of the grocery chain in this country, Mr. Speaker. I did speak also to the telcos, actually, to make sure that we would reduce prices for Canadians should this merger go forward. But, Mr. Speaker, beyond that, this is not a political issue, Mr. Speaker. We are concerned, they are concerned, every Canadian is concerned. What matters to Canadians, Mr. Speaker, is that we all do our parts. We ask the grocers to do their part. We ask the producers to do their part. And I've even called upon the companies who have increased prices at the time that Canadian families are struggling. We'll fight for Canadians at every step of the way.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, this government's inflationary choices are forcing Canadians to tighten their belts. The increase in the expenses of an average Canadian family with a $400,000 mortgage up to 5.5% means they'll have to pay $20,000 more this year. Mr. Speaker, will the government give Canadians some breathing room? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I agree with my Conservative colleague that Canadian households are having trouble, and that is why we doubled the GST tax credit for 11 million Canadian households. And that is also why we voted in favour on this side of the House for measures that will put more money into Canadian families' pockets. Mr. Speaker, I still don't understand how the Conservatives can rise in this place and say that Canadians need our help, whereas they vote against the measures we put forward. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are not calling for a partisan response. They're calling for action. Mortgages are up, gas is up, groceries are up, heating prices are up, and everything is up. Mr. Speaker, will the Liberal government pledge to not increase the taxes of all Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, I think that my colleague is getting all excited because next week we're going to unveil our economic update. And, Mr. Speaker, that update is going to be fiscally responsible. We have one of the lowest deficits in the world, Mr. Speaker. We're talking about 1%. We were fiscally responsible in our April budget, and we will be as well in our update, and we'll be there for Canadians to help them weather this period of instability. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, the UN this year published another scathing report on climate change. It put together all the plans of all countries to fight climate change, and it shows that we are very far from our 1.5 degrees target. The minimum rise will be 2.5 degrees, and that's only if the countries respect their plans. But Canada has just announced in Washington that it's going to accelerate gas projects to export more to Europe. Does the minister realize that when the UN is asking for climate change cuts, not increases? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. Now, I'm quite confused by her question because the leader of her party said in an article on Radio-Canada that the environmentalists in Quebec are angry at the leader because he questions climate change. And so we believe in the climate change science, and we have taken serious measures to fight climate change. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. I don't think the minister understood my question because I was talking about oil. The minister was on Les Coulisses du Pouvoir Sunday, and he was questioned about Canada's plan, which was announced in Washington, to expedite oil and gas projects. The minister could have said, to be clear, that no, Canada would never do that in the midst of a climate crisis. But on the contrary, he explained how he, as an environment minister, could advise oil and gas companies to help them to get through the assessment process more quickly. Now, how many other oil projects is he planning to approve? The Honourable Environment Minister. Mr. Speaker, the leader of the Québécois, when he was Minister of Environment in Quebec, sidestepped environmental assessments on the project in Gaspésie. He circumvented the environmental assessment on Line 9 in Enbridge, and he sidestepped his own law, Mr. Speaker, when he is Environment Minister in Quebec on drilling in Anticosti. So I think the Bloc Québécois doesn't need to teach anyone lessons on that.
The Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
So I thought the Prime Minister loved vacations, whether it's visiting the Taj Mahal, flying to private islands, surfing on Truth and Reconciliation Day, or spending $6,000 a night on a hotel room in London. But at the same time, his overpriced Arrive scam app kneecapped Canadian tourism, and now he's forcing Canadians to cancel a visit to Grandma or a trip across town by tripling the carbon tax. How is it fair for the costly coalition to overtax and block travel by Canadians while continuing to fund the Prime Minister's extravagance?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, throughout the pandemic, this government put in place the measures that were necessary to protect the health and safety of Canadians. We made sure that we introduced CERB. We made sure that we introduced wage subsidies. We made sure that we introduced rent subsidies to keep businesses alive, to make sure that we could protect workers. And yes, and at the border, we also put in place the measures that were necessary to facilitate travel to keep our economy going, and that include Arrive Can to protect the health and safety of those travelers who are coming into Canada. Mr. Speaker, we will always use evidence, science, and medicine as the bedrock of our decisions, while Conservatives fight a war against it every day.
Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, they also made sure they found a hotel in London that cost $6,000 a night. I'm seriously trying to imagine what you could get for $6,000 a night. It must have been a just incredible time. Did champagne come out of the faucet, or was he busy planning his leadership campaign? Did the bill include the cost of bail for the Minister of the Environment? I'm sure it was such a wild time that Bill Morneau could have written a whole book about it. Could the House know once and for all, if any sleeping took place, who slept in the $6,000 a night hotel room?
The Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the official Canadian delegation to the Queen's funeral included the Governor-General and former Prime Ministers. All members of the official delegation, including 2 Conservative Prime Ministers, stayed at the same hotel that could accommodate its size during extremely high demand. As always, Mr. Speaker, our government made every effort to ensure that spending on official trips is responsible and transparent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Stormont, Dundas South Glengarry.
Mr. Speaker, this morning in a stunning decision, the Supreme Court of Canada has struck down a criminal code requirement that sex offenders be automatically added to the sex offender registry. This should terrify every woman, every victim of sexual assault, and every parent in this country. We cannot spare a moment to fix this massive public safety issue. What will the Liberals do to guarantee that every single sex offender is always on the National Sex Offender Registry?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question. Obviously, we as a government stand in support of survivors of sexual assault, sexual violence, and it is important that our criminal justice system treat and punish offenders in the system. We have the Supreme Court decision this morning. It is complex. There are a couple of different aspects to it, Mr. Speaker. We are looking at it carefully, and we're looking at options in terms of how to move forward.
The honourable member for Stormont, Dundas South Glengarry.
Any woman, any victim of a sexual assault, and every parent in this country should be very concerned about that lack of a definitive statement to say we are going to guarantee that every single sex offender in this country is always automatically listed on the sex offender registry. Absolutely. That should be a given, and that should be an easy statement for the minister to commit to this House to fix this problem immediately. I will ask again, what will he do and these Liberals do to ensure that every single sex offender, repeat or not, is always on the sex offender registry? This should be a given.
Yeah. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, last spring, when it was a question of the extreme intoxication defence, I moved immediately to make sure that we had legislation in this House to fix that gap. Mr. Speaker, these are complex issues. The decision came down this morning. There are a number of different important and different aspects to the decision. We will support victims, Mr. Speaker. We will look at the possible options that we have moving forward, and we will move forward, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Mr. Speaker, at record rates, families are being forced to turn to food banks because they just can't keep up with rising food prices. People are angry that their wages stay the same while rich CEOs are driving up costs to make millions. The Liberals have a responsibility to support Canadians. Instead, they've let CEOs hide their massive profits behind inflation. When will the Liberals tackle corporate greed in the grocery sector to help families with their food bills?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, there are a number of measures in our budget that will ensure that everyone pays their fair share in this economy, but I do agree with the member opposite that Canadians are seeing higher prices at the grocery store, which is why our government took action, Mr. Speaker. In addition to doubling the GST tax credit for 11 million households in this country, Mr. Speaker, the Competition Bureau has indicated that it will take action thanks to the demands of this government. As well, Mr. Speaker, thanks again to the actions of our government, supermarkets, many of them across this country, will be freezing and have already, in some cases, frozen prices at the cash register, Mr. Speaker. These are measures that will support Canadians.
Honourable member for Hamilton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, it was thanks to the demands of the NDP, and while Canadians struggle to put food on their table, grocery giants are picking their pockets in order to line their own for Bay Street. In the first 2 quarters of 2022, grocery stores made an average of $1.5 billion while workers' wages stayed the same. That's twice as much as the pre-pandemic profits, and this year, food bank use rose to the highest levels in Canadian history, and yet rich CEOs keep cashing in. It's despicable. Yeah. When will this Liberal government curb the appetite of corporate greed so that Canadians don't have to continue to go home hungry?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, we share the indignation of my colleague on the other side. Obviously, we all want to do our part, obviously, to bring the price down for Canadians. But the difference, Mr. Speaker, is on this side of the House, we took action to make that happen. The first thing I did, Mr. Speaker, is back a few months ago, we did ask the Competition Bureau to look at unlawful practice in the sector. And more recently, my colleague would remember, I did write to the Competition Bureau to ask them to start an investigation. But in addition to that, I called the CEOs themselves and I asked them, do your part for Canadians. Canadian families are hurting. You need to do your part. CEOs are doing their part. We're doing our part. Why don't all members do their part to bring price downs to Canadians?
The Honourable Member for Whitby.
Mr. Speaker, at a time when the rules-based international order and democracy is threatened, the relation with our American counterparts is more important than ever. This week, the Minister of Foreign Affairs announced the first official visit to Canada by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Could the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs inform this House of the importance of this visit for Canada-U.S. relations?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my colleague from Whitby for his work and important question. More than ever, Canada and the United States are united as allies, partners, and friends. During this important visit, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Secretary Blinken had the occasion to discuss the crisis in Haiti, the situation in Iran, the Arctic, investing in the Indo-Pacific, our continued collaboration on holding Russia accountable for its illegal invasion of Ukraine. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to face the world challenges together with one of our most important allies.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Centre.
Mr. Speaker, in August, Germany's leaders came to Canada begging us to help offset their dependence on Russian gas. Our Prime Minister replied, there is no business case for Canadian LNG. Au contraire, refuted Canada's actual business leaders. The opportunity for tens of thousands of Canadian jobs is quite clear. With the world demanding Canadian energy, why is this Prime Minister berating Canada's clear opportunity?
Great. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, Canada is committed to tackling the concurrent crises of global energy security and climate change, but we will do so in a manner that accounts for and works to minimize domestic emissions and do so in a manner that ensures any resulting emissions fit within Canada's climate plan. LNG is one of the tools in our toolbox, and our government is committed to supporting the development of the LNG sector. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Centre.
Well, that doesn't seem quite true. Coal experts from Russia have reached peak levels. China has also reached peak levels and gone up 300 million tons of coal production this year. Europe is cranking up coal plants. Why? Because the LNG that Canada could have supplied has been held up by this government's policies. Canadian LNG has a carbon footprint half that of the coal that's ramping up around the world. When will this government get out of the way and provide the planet with the carbon emission fuel we need to decarbonize?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, I find it a bit rich to hear the member opposite talk about foreign oil imports. There was twice as more foreign oil imports under their leadership than today. So when they say they have the back of energy workers, the question is, which energy workers, Mr. Speaker? Saudi Arabia energy workers, Russian energy workers, or Canadian energy workers? Because under our leadership, oil exports have gone down by 50%, Mr. Speaker, and imports in investment in renewable energy and clean technologies have doubled since 2015. I think we have no lessons to receive from the member opposite on energy, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Mr. Speaker, it is disgusting. The NDP Liberals have not learned their lesson. They continue on this dangerous crusade to shut down Canada's oil and gas sector, something that is not only economically disastrous, but is dangerous for our world and bad for the environment, and puts my constituents as well as oil and gas workers from every province in the country out of work. Will this minister put an end to his activism and let Canada's oil and gas workers deliver the energy that this world needs?
Yeah.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, when we're talking about transition, we're not only talking about the future of the industry and sustainable jobs, we're talking about economic opportunities for communities across our country, Those enormous economic opportunities will be enabled through the transition to a low-carbon future. Those opportunities will vary by region. They are particularly in Alberta, and it will be based on local economies and geography. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Langley Aldergrove.
Mr. Speaker, this ideologically driven minister wants to leave our natural resources in the ground, and instead they want to mine Canadian workers' paychecks. I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, the last thing Canadian workers need is more inflationary taxation. Will these Liberals get out of the way of our hardworking oil and gas workers, and instead, will they do the right thing? Will they supply the world with clean and ethical Canadian energy?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Environment.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to quote an extract from an article that the new Director of Communications for the Conservative Party of Canada said, and he said, instead of scoring cheap political points on Trudeau's carbon tax, Conservatives need to get serious and offer their own alternative. I agree with the new Director of Communications for the Conservative Party of Canada, Mr. Speaker.
I know we can't use members' names in the area. Just a reminder that we can't use names. Prime Minister, honourable ministers, those kinds of things. Even if we quote, we can't use it. That's it's a rule that's been around for a while. The honourable member, London Rapid.
The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the government expects 50,000 people to come into Canada through Roxham Road this year. That's not about to change, according to U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. When asked yesterday, he didn't talk about fixing the situation at Roxham Road. Instead, he lectured Canada on having a greater sense of shared responsibility for dealing with asylum seekers. Mr. Speaker, did anyone in government explain to him that being responsible means making sure you're greeting people at border crossings, not on a path in the woods with the cops? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, look, it's our duty to protect Canadians and Quebecers and to provide for border safety and security. At the same time, asylum seekers have to be treated with compassion, and the law has to be enforced in a regular way. The Safe Third Country Agreement is an important tool for managing migration, and we're in constant communication with our U.S. counterparts with regard to the Safe Third Country Agreement. The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. We can see the cooperation is really going smoothly. Mr. Speaker, we see the government's once again taking no for an answer from the Americans. No to suspending and no to updating the Safe Third Country Agreement. They've been saying no since 2017. So it's time to take the next step. The agreement clearly states in Section 10, that the government can unilaterally suspend it. Since it's now clear the Americans aren't going to do anything about Roxham Road, when's the government going to tell them that we are suspending the agreement? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, let's be crystal clear. The closure of that road or suspending the agreement, those are not solutions because they won't solve the problem. As the member opposite knows, Canada shares the longest demilitarized border or unguarded border in the world. Asylum seekers are required to produce identification, and this is an effort to prevent more dangerous crossings. What we are trying to do is modernize or update the agreement.
Mr. Speaker, according to reports in the National Post, the Canadian Armed Forces was warned that the recent inoculation mandate may have been illegal. Mr. Speaker, will this Prime Minister commit to playing divisive politics with our troops and ensure that orders given to our military personnel are legal under Canadian law?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for the question. I think we all recognize that
The world has just gone through a global pandemic that has threatened so many lives, including the lives of Canadians. And we as a government had to take every step necessary to ensure that Canadians are safe and protected. That is why we made sure that we invested in vaccinations and got Canadians vaccinated as quickly as possible. That includes our Canadian Armed Force members as well, who took up that responsibility very seriously and made sure that they were inoculated so that they can continue to protect our great country. Thank you very much.
Honourable Member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Mr. Speaker, text messages released to the Public Order Emergency Commission confirm that RCMP Commissioner Luckey sought to use a messaging app that would prevent deleted messages from being retrieved by investigators. I guess she learned a lesson from former Liberal operative Dan Bryan, who recorded explosive audio evidence that exposed the minister's attempt to interfere in a police investigation. The Liberals know they can hide their wrongdoing by using covert apps and deleting evidence, but Canadians are catching on to them. When will the minister and the RCMP commissioner come clean with Canadians and stop the cover-up?
The Honourable Minister of Emergency Preparedness.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in this House, speculation, conjecture, and innuendo are not facts. Only facts are facts. And it's why perhaps the member opposite has omitted the fact that, for example, when the commissioner asked Commissioner Carrick if I'd been in contact with him, he actually answered, no, that's a fact, Mr. Speaker. And here's another one for the benefit of all members. I never did.
The Honourable Member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Well, I guess we can never know, Mr. Speaker, because they stopped taking recordings of their messages. Text messages released to the Public Order Emergency Commission are confirming a disturbing trend. The Minister of Emergency Preparedness repeatedly politicizing Canada's independent police forces with the complete cooperation of RCMP Commissioner Luckey. Politicizing the deaths of Nova Scotians was just the beginning. Now we learn that the Liberals sought to use independent police forces to provide political cover for their invocation of the Emergencies Act after they had already invoked it. The Minister has crossed the line yet again. When will he resign?
The Honourable Minister of Emergency Preparedness.
I think the weakness of the member opposite's argument is solely based on the fact that virtually everything he said is based on conjecture and innuendo. And there are no facts that have contradicted the statements that I have made to this House. I have confirmed to this...
Order. We ask the questions. We should listen to the answers as well. The Honourable Minister of Emergency Preparedness.
Mr. Speaker, it's quite apparent that the members opposite are afraid of the truth. And because it contradicts both their speculation and their innuendo. Mr. Speaker, I have been clear in this House that at no time, Mr. Speaker, did I ever interfere with the conduct and the operations of the RCMP. This has been confirmed by sworn testimony from the RCMP Commissioner. Mr. Speaker, the truth is that this interference never took place. It's a principle that we have always respected and always guarded. It's a foundation of
the Honourable Member for Lac Saint Louis. Mr. Speaker, this week was marked by the visit of the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki Mahamat. Our trade relations with Africa are key, and there are many opportunities on the continent for Canadian companies. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade, Export Promotion, Small Business and Economic Development update this House on the trade situation and how Canada plans to strengthen our ties with Africa? Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Lac Saint Louis for his hard work. This was the first ever high-level dialogue between Canada and the African Union Commission. And there were many conversations. The relationship between Canada and the African Union is based on shared priorities of peace, democracy, sustainable development, health, and economic cooperation. More than ever, we have to work closely together to ensure the resilience of our economies and that prosperity is shared by all our peoples. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, food bank use is rising by over 20% in Beauce. 1 in 5 people who go to food banks are workers who can no longer make ends meet, whether it's the high cost of food, with pasta, flour, and so on skyrocketing, when will the government realize that Canadians are suffocating under these punishing taxes? Would they? Is it clear now? No new taxes? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for his important question. We're all grappling with this issue, Mr. Speaker, and that's why earlier this year I asked the Competition Bureau to ensure that there was no unfair practices going on in the food industry, and I also requested an investigation into that. I also asked the CEOs of the major grocery stores to do their share for Canadians. They're doing their part, we're doing our part, and I would call on the Conservatives to do their part as well and vote to support Canadian families and to lower prices.
Mr. Speaker, Jan, a mother who lives in my riding, is worried about the carbon tax that now comprises over 64% of her energy consumption. With an ongoing cost of living crisis, already struggling to make ends meet, soon we'll have to choose between food and warmth this winter. Mr. Speaker, will this NDP Liberal government cancel their planned carbon tax increase so hardworking Canadians like Jan doesn't have to choose between eating or heating this winter?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The cost of climate change to Canadians is in the tens of billions of dollars, and it seems like the Conservative Party of Canada doesn't understand that we're all paying for this, that there's no escaping it. And we have to address the issue of climate change as we address issues of affordability, which is why 2 weeks ago, thanks to the climate action incentive payments, a family of four received $186 in Ontario, $208 in Manitoba, $275 in Saskatchewan, $269 in Alberta, and they will be receiving this 4 times a year, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Mr. Speaker, based on an email I received yesterday from his parliamentary secretary, I understand that the Minister for Public Safety will, for the first time since the Liberals took power in 2015, be initiating a discussion with the RCMP on the subject of putting defibrillators into police cruisers. Wow. Placing defibrillators in cruisers would save over 300 lives a year. That's 30 a month, so time is of the essence. Right. Therefore, when can we expect to learn that a decision has been made, one direction or the other? Thank you.
Great question. I want to thank my colleague for raising this important issue, and I look forward to cooperating with him on it. I have engaged my office to be in touch with the RCMP to ensure that they have all of the tools that they need. And in the meantime, we have continued to make historic investments in frontline officers so that we can ensure consistency of policing excellence right across this country. And again, I underline my gratitude to the member for raising this question. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Malpeque.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Indigenous peoples deserve a justice system that treats them fairly and takes into account their reality. Recently, our government made an important announcement in Manitoba, addressing the overrepresentation and over-incarceration of Métis people in our justice system. Can the Minister of Justice tell us more about his recent announcement concerning the Red River Métis?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
I want to thank the Honourable Member from Malpeque for this question. It's good to see that the tradition of strong representation from Malpeque continues, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, earlier this month we announced a significant investment of $1.68 million to address several issues related to the overrepresentation of Red River Métis people in the justice system. The Manitoba Métis Federation will use this money for programs that will help prevent and reduce crime through diversion of offenders out of the criminal justice system with appropriate supports, and these investments will also help families through the establishment of Métis mediation services. Mr. Speaker, I think everyone in this chamber agrees that we need to fight the overrepresentation of Indigenous peoples in the criminal justice system. This is part of it. Bill C-5 is another.
The Honourable Member for Port Moody Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, the crisis in our healthcare is getting worse by the day. Emergency rooms across the country are shutting down and are so stretched that families are forced to wait 10 to 20 hours to get emergency care. This cannot continue. The Liberals must act now to protect and expand our healthcare system. When will this government show leadership and invest the necessary funding to ensure Canadians are getting the care they need when they need it.
The Honourable Minister of Mental Health and Addictions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for the question. And as you know, the health ministers will be meeting shortly in 2 weeks in Vancouver. We look forward to that meeting as a lot of the issues that the member has raised in terms of particularly how we expand health human resources, how we deal with the kind of health transformation that will get people the most appropriate care in the most appropriate place by the most appropriate provider at the most appropriate time. We're all working together on that, and we look forward to those deliberations.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, all of us in our constituency offices are hearing from desperate people affected by illness. All parties agree we need to extend financial assistance to Canadians with serious illnesses. In the last budget, the government announced that sickness benefits would be extended to 26 weeks. This was to be in place by summer or fall of 2022. Unfortunately, it hasn't been done yet. Can the minister tell us when this highly anticipated extended benefit will be available? The Honourable...
Mr. Speaker, and one of the things in which the government has been doing is taking a look at a number of different ways in which we can enhance things such as the EI benefits for Canadians, and also into consideration, we do take into consideration what it is that the member has risen today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And that's all the time we have for question period today. And as I'd like to get going with the daily routine of business, I'm going to ask people to take their conversations outside or just try to be quiet as we proceed. Daily routine of business, tabling of documents.
Introduction of government bills.
Déclaration de ministre. Report interparliamentary delegations. Presenting reports from committees. Dépôt de
Introduction of private members' bills.
First reading of Senate public bills. Motion. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there have been discussions of
order. I want to make sure we're cleared here for a sec. There you go. This after question period rush that happens. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Speaker, there have been discussions amongst the parties, and if you seek it, I believe you'll find unanimous consent to adopt the following motion: that notwithstanding any standing order, special order, or usual practice of the House, at 4 p.m.